Hello! Before you watch this video, I highly suggest watching my previous video, Avoid These Art Careers Thanks to AI Art, to get information that will not be shared in this video. This video is a continuation on that conversation and will not be covering as much as the first one. Thanks. Hello Bishes, welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I wanted to talk about something a little bit more on the positive side compared to last week's video where I discussed a few art careers that I could see the potential of fading out over time thanks to AI art. But I do, at the end of the day, don't believe that all art jobs will become obsolete in the future. I still believe that there will still be a need for human artists at the end of the day. And that's what today's video is going to discuss, is some of the art jobs that I feel like will be AI proof. And although the title is a bit clickbaity because I don't really think anything can be truly considered AI proof, because you know, with technology nowadays, I do feel like people will always find a way to make something happen. But what I mean in today's video is more so the types of art careers that I feel like will still have at least a good, decent amount of life expectancy before this whole AI art apocalypse happens, which could be happening after we're all dead. So, you know, I really don't know what the future holds because I am not a psychic at the end of the day, but I am speaking as a professional artist who is currently working in the LA animation industry, as well as an author for a graphic novel, and as a person who is on social media and creates online comics and YouTube videos. But before you watch this video, I also do highly suggest you watch my previous video about my broad thoughts on AI art as well, because I feel like if you watch this video without the other one, I don't know, people might just say things that I already said in the previous video, and you know how the whole internet likes to work. But yeah, I'm just gonna dive in right ahead and just talk about what I do think are somewhat AI-proof art jobs, just so that we can still give people who are losing hope some hope back. So first of all, I do think that if in the future AI art takes over, and let's say that's all there is going to be of art in the future, which honestly I really don't think is going to happen. If that is the case, where there's no more online digital art that is made by a human, you can just never tell the difference between an AI generated art piece versus a human art piece that was created digitally, I feel like traditional art is going to come at a premium if that is the case. So selling traditional art / handcrafted goods will still have value because people purchase these things with the acknowledgement that they are made by a human. For example, whenever you attend conventions or even purchase a physical sketch, illustration, or painting from somebody that they did on that actual piece of paper or canvas, that is going to be so much more valuable in the future because it is apparently now a rarity. However, I don't think that these things are just going to be as easy as saying, hey, I'm just going to become a traditional artist and just get rich off of that. No, I still think that you will have to develop a name for yourself and you will have to develop a presence for yourself in order to even make that stuff sellable. So that is the annoying aspect of it. It's not something that is as easy as applying for a job online as a traditional artist and then just living off of that as your career. It's definitely going to have to come from the more entrepreneurial realm, and you're going to have to develop probably a name for yourself through social media and create a brand for yourself. So that is going to have to be the foundational aspect to being able to even make sales off of traditional art or handcrafted goods. That's why there are some Etsy shops out there that are really well known and do so much better than others. And that also goes the same for artists. There are artists online who have a great following, and just from an objective standpoint, if you are going to have a greater following, you probably are going to create more sales with your work. And by that time, if traditional art is going to be more of a rare feature, then I do think that, yeah, you can probably price your art a lot higher, but assuming that if you have a good following or community to back that, then yeah. But it will still be a struggle for those who do not have a name for themselves and they're just selling their traditional art for a high fee when they do not have the following to begin with. Moving on to the next career, I feel like comic artists will still be valued in the future, because I'm not just saying this because I myself am a comic artist. I'm saying this because I genuinely do think that there will still be a value for human stories, especially autobiographical comics, just because even though AI art has proven to be able to make comics online, they can only make comics based off of pre-existing material or things that have existed already. But if you are a human living your life and you experience these random unique things in your life, those are things that AI cannot just randomly predict or create because it hasn't happened before. And I feel like a person's unique experiences are still just valued by other humans, because when I pick up a book, when I pick up a comic, usually I will then eventually look into the artist or the author behind it, because I want to draw the connection between why this person made this story in this specific style or storytelling method. And to this day, I still feel like, from what I see attending conventions or just getting a scope of artists online, comic artists still just seem to have this greater reach to their audience just for that story element, because they are talking about things from their experiences that others can relate to, and sometimes they can disguise it in a fantastical universe, they can disguise it into a sci-fi story, they can turn that into something fictional, but the root of that story at the end of the day is still going to come back to something that is human and relatable. I do think when AI art comics come out and actually sell in bookstores, people will be probably amazed by the fact that, hey, this is kind of a novelty. It's going to have some appeal in the beginning, but I think in the long run, after people get over the hype, they're still going to resume back to human stories, because we all have our struggles that we're going to be dealing with throughout life, no matter what. And I feel like whenever you deal with specific struggles or certain types of experiences that you want a point of relation to, you will end up resorting to stories of your preferred medium that you will want to read things with. And before I move on to the next role, I wanted to first thank the sponsor of today's video. FlexiSpot is a home office brand that offers a range of ergonomic office furniture, from stand desks, chairs, and more. If you followed me for a while now, you're probably aware I've had FlexiSpot's standard standing desk, their office chair, and recently gifted my boyfriend their newer ergonomic chair Pro. I know we've mostly talked about technology that concerns us in today's video, but let's just have a moment to appreciate technology that is a bit more directly beneficial for us. Having an ergonomic office setup is so important as a digital artist, because you are sedentary the majority of the time. This can lead to future back, shoulder, and neck problems, so having a stand desk is one of the ways you can keep a good habit of alternating standing and sitting, and having a chair with good lumbar support can help improve your posture. Their stand desks and chairs are both pretty straightforward to set up and adjustable to whatever height or position you want. They come in different materials and colors, with the ones I chose to be black and white. FlexiSpot is hosting a Black Friday sale on their website with a flash sale of $110 off the EN1 stand desk on November 25th and $110 off the OC10 chair from November 25th to 28th, so read the description box below for more information. They even have products from stand desk converters and mobile office stands for anyone who can't afford larger furniture at this time. So thank you again, FlexiSpot, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to the original programming. Moving on to the next role, I think art director roles will also be hard to take over. I've seen a lot of conversations between artists online who say things like, oh, well, you know, once AI art takes over, that just opens up more art director roles. I actually kind of disagree with that, because I don't think that suddenly all studios will just have directors for everything, because directors have a great say in the creative vision of something, and I feel like if you have like 20 to 30 director roles on a project, then there's a room for a lot of clashing. But what I do think is that art director roles will just continue to exist, and I see them being impacted by AI art a lot less. Sure, it can still happen, but I still think that at the end of the day, there has to be a human approving and saying yes or no to certain decisions decisions, as they are the people who have had prior experience as an artist, but also prior experience managing people and also prior experience having leadership, which is something that I am not sure how studios or large companies will be okay with just having these AI art generators making the decisions for them, because nowadays I feel like with diversity and stories from underrepresented groups, I feel like that obviously is going to be more needed and it will continue to be needed in the future. But I don't know how AI art can suddenly just make up a story about them being in the shoes of a minority group or an oppressed group and just have that be okay by the audience. I feel like audiences now value raw, authentic stories, which I'm not sure how raw and authentic AI art can be because it is already artificial. Another reason why I think that art director roles will be hard to take over is because it's a role that hasn't even really fully relied on creating art as its responsibility, especially in the storyboarding role and probably even in a lot of the animation roles. A lot of art directors still have to create art, but there still is a large element of their position that is mostly about making creative decisions, sharing their opinions, sharing what they think about certain things. So the fourth job that I think that will just be taking some time for AI art to fully penetrate are animation union jobs, because there's already a barrier that just exists, and even if, again, an AI art takeover happens, I feel like it's going to be at least some time before it gets through the union. Some of the animation union jobs out there that exist are storyboard artists, visual development artists, character designers, animators, etc. If you go on the animation union website, you can probably find more specific roles that might cater towards what you want to do as an artist. But even though these roles exist everywhere else in the world at other animation studios, the jobs specifically at unionized studios are protected through the union. And as a person who has been working with a lot of unionized studios thus far in my career, which is pretty much the majority of like all of my jobs, I just don't know how AI art can fully just make the animation union no longer exist and just have people working in the union suddenly say, yeah, sure, AI art, go ahead. But when it just comes to animation union jobs, there just is a more clear barrier that you have to get through before you really can just do certain things to artists. They're already starting to crack down on a lot of animation studios doing illegal testing on artists, which is studios pretty much giving artists a test to see if they are a good potential for their team. But sometimes they don't accept those artists, but they will still utilize their tests as a part of their work, which is not right, obviously. But I feel like the union is really cracking down on that and actually creating awareness and some sort of regulation around that. So I just don't know how AI art is suddenly going to change the minds of people who are in the animation union and make it okay for artists to suddenly be replaceable. Also, as a person right now who is just working in the animation industry and pretty much receives the latest animation union updates or just discussions happening within our community, I don't really see too many conversations happening right now about AI art. Yes, I have seen a few here and there, but it is nowhere near to the extent of how the internet is blowing up this discussion right now, which I'm not saying is like, oh, it's not a big deal in our industry because we're just that confident. I think that everyone should just be aware about how the future can change things in general, and I do think that industries should be aware about AI so that if something does happen, we were prepared and not underprepared and can take the necessary steps needed to take action upon that. So it's either between that they are just confident enough to just not feel like they need to worry, or it's just not information that has been spread enough, but it could have just started because I do see some people starting to bring up the conversation. It is just not to the degree that it is right now on the internet. I've already talked about the town halls by the Concept Art Association in my previous video, so please check that out. But I personally would just be really curious to see an animation union version of that, or people within the animation industry talking about that. But this video and my last video are pretty much my 2 cents as an individual artist working in the industry right now. And then the last job I'm going to talk about, I know is probably going to be very exhausting to hear from me, and I'm also tired of talking about it myself, but I feel like I just need to say it because I still just think it's going to be the truth. But I think that being a social media personality slash brand online is going to be a little bit more AI proof than an industry job, just because you created this name for yourself that cannot be erased from the minds of people who suddenly decided to just follow you. I feel like if you are someone who has established a name for yourself online, usually through social media or even within your industry, but I feel like social media at this point has a stronger say than building a name for yourself within an industry, is because you can always rely on a more universal audience to support you instead of just your industry to support you. Because what I've noticed is that, yeah, there are a lot of people who are really well known within a certain industry, but they are not really that well known to the rest of the world. And I feel like that could be the downfall for those people if there is a sudden AI art takeover, because the ones who will be making the decisions to incorporate AI to take over artist roles, if that ever happens, will be the industries themselves. And if the industries turn their backs on you, like, who else do you have to go to? The only other people who exist in this world are just people. So that's why I feel like there will be a greater reliance on just a more universal audience, which is pretty much just anybody else out there in the world. And that is why social media is the greater middleman for that, as much as it pains for me to say, because I feel like social media has already been toxic enough on artists with how their algorithm has been working. And I know that a lot of artists are already super exhausted with the way that social media works. I myself am also exhausted, but it's still something that I just feel obligated to have to do to a certain extent, just because I know that in order to really be sustainable in this day and age, you have to diversify yourself. And social media is just one of those ways that you will be able to reach a broader audience. I feel like the only thing I can offer with this piece of advice is to just list ways to make social media less unbearable. If I had to choose between the platforms, I would say YouTube is probably one of the better options for the time being, just because there is more direct monetary compensation for the content you create, especially after you've monetized your channel. You can always be showing the behind the scenes, being able to share your art process, being able to share yourself as an artist, and just being able to teach other artists or humans out there. But if you are not a person who really enjoys making videos, I still think that there is still some value in sharing your art online, even if it's on Instagram or whatever social media platform of your choice. I just think in general, it's a good idea to just get started in it. I don't think being a social media personality or brand is going to be the end all be all solution to having an AI-proof art job. It is just, again, one of the other options that has a certain requirement that will depend on if you are willing to deal with that or not. And some artists are willing to, others are not. And if you are not willing to deal with that, you do not have to be a social media artist, brand, person whatsoever. Anyway, I hope this video provided some more options for anybody who watched my previous video and was like, okay, well, if these jobs are being taken, then what is there available? Here are some of the jobs that I do think will be available, but again, I just think the barrier to entry might take a little bit more time to get to. But I also do feel like these roles at the end of the day were more like jobs that actual people wanted to strive to get to in the first place. I feel like a lot of the jobs I listed in in the other video were more of like stepping stone types of jobs, but these are the more like somewhat end goal types of jobs that I feel like I hear artists aspire to become. So hopefully just listing these jobs can at least give you more of a light at the end of the tunnel to realize that, hey, even though I am this right now, at least this job that I want at the end of the day will still probably be more likely to happen. Thank you for watching this video. If you haven't already, please check out my previous video on AI art for any information that I did not share in this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So peace out and stay wholesome, bitches.